Growing up, Jackson and I were inseparable. As brothers only 4 years apart, we shared everything: bunk beds, fishing trips, and countless adventures in our backyard. When he introduced Natalie as his fiancée last spring, I was genuinely happy for him, though something about her never quite sat right with me. I brushed it off as overprotectiveness. Nothing could have prepared me for that fateful family dinner when Natalie stood up, announced her pregnancy, and pointed directly at me. "Grant is the father," she declared. The instant belief in their eyes shattered my world. Hey everyone, before I continue this unbelievable story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like to see how I fought back when my own family turned against me over a horrifying lie. I have always been the dependable one in our family. At 28, I had built a stable career as a project manager at Davidson Construction, overseeing commercial developments throughout the Pacific Northwest. My life was orderly, predictable, exactly how I liked it. Jackson, my older brother by 4 years, had always been my hero growing up. We shared a bedroom until I was 14, whispering our dreams to each other long after our parents thought we were asleep. He protected me from neighborhood bullies, taught me how to talk to girls, and never missed my high school football games. Our bond was unshakable, or so I thought. Some of my favorite memories were our annual fishing trips with Dad to Lake Chelan, where we would compete to catch the biggest trout while sharing our deepest secrets. My romantic life had recently hit a rough patch. After dating Stephanie for 4 years, my college sweetheart everyone assumed I would marry, we had broken up 6 months earlier. The split was amicable, but left me feeling adrift. I had thrown myself into work, avoiding the dating scene entirely. When Jackson first mentioned Natalie, he was uncharacteristically giddy. "She is different from anyone I have ever met," he told me over beers. They had met at Palmer and Associates, the law firm where he practiced corporate law and where she worked as a paralegal. Their romance moved at lightning speed. Engaged after only 6 months, faster than anything I had witnessed from my typically cautious brother. The first time we met was at a casual dinner at his downtown apartment. Natalie was undeniably attractive, with long auburn hair and an infectious laugh, but something about her felt calculated. The way her eyes lingered too long on the designer watch our parents had given Jackson for his 30th birthday. How she subtly steered every conversation toward finances or status. I dismissed these observations as overprotective brother syndrome. As the months passed, our paths crossed at numerous family gatherings. Each time, Natalie seemed overly interested in my personal life, asking probing questions about my salary, apartment, and investment portfolio. "Construction management must pay really well," she would comment, eyeing my modest watch or car with unusual intensity. I maintained a polite distance while trying to welcome her into our family circle. Their engagement party last month at my parents' sprawling suburban home should have been purely celebratory. Instead, I noticed Natalie drinking heavily, her carefully constructed facade slipping with each glass of champagne. "Your brother got the looks, but you definitely got the ambition," she slurred when Jackson was out of earshot, her hand lingering uncomfortably on my arm. I extricated myself, politely chalking it up to intoxication. That same night, I stepped outside for fresh air and overheard Natalie having a heated phone conversation behind the garden trellis. "You will get your money, just give me more time," she hissed. "This is bigger than we thought." When she noticed me, she quickly ended the call, flashed a brilliant smile, and claimed it was just work drama. Our family had maintained a monthly dinner tradition since Jackson and I moved out of the house. The first Sunday of each month, we gathered at our parents' home for Mom's famous pot roast and catching up. It was at one of these sacred family rituals that my life imploded. Natalie had seemed unusually quiet throughout the meal, picking at her food and declining wine. Unusual for her. As Mom brought out dessert, Natalie cleared her throat and stood up. "I have an announcement," she said, her voice quivering with what I now know was practiced emotion. "I am pregnant, 3 months along." The table erupted in excitement. Mom immediately teared up. Dad clapped Jackson on the shoulder, and I offered genuine congratulations. Then the room froze as Natalie continued. "But Jackson is not the father," she said, tears streaming down her face. She turned and pointed directly at me. Grant is. The silence was deafening. I felt the blood drain from my face as she launched into a completely fabricated story about how we had slept together one night when Jackson was out of town for a case. She claimed I had taken advantage of her after she had too much to drink at a dinner where she had supposedly sought my advice about wedding plans. That is completely false, I stammered, looking desperately at my family members. I never touched her. We never had dinner alone. This is insane. But the damage was done. The look of hurt and betrayal on Jackson's face will haunt me forever. My father, always my steadfast supporter, could not meet my eyes. My mother covered her mouth, shaking her head in disbelief, not at the accusation but at me. I think you should leave, my father said quietly, his voice strained with disappointment. As I drove home that night, my entire world collapsed around me. My own family, the people who had known me my entire life, had instantly believed I was capable of the ultimate betrayal. The following weeks were the darkest of my life. My frantic calls and messages to Jackson went unanswered. He had always been my first call in any crisis, and his absence felt like missing a limb. The few texts that lit up my phone were devastating. How could you do this to your brother from Mom and give us time from Dad? They had already convicted me without a trial. My work performance plummeted as I struggled to concentrate on building specifications and contractor meetings. My boss Dave pulled me aside after I missed a crucial deadline. Whatever is going on in your personal life, fix it or take some time off, he warned. The career I had carefully built was now at risk too. 3 weeks after the accusation, desperate for any contact, I waited in the parking garage of Jackson's building. When he finally appeared, his face hardened at the sight of me. Jackson, please. 5 minutes. This never happened. I trusted you more than anyone, he snarled, keys clenched in his fist. Stay away from me. Stay away from Natalie, or I will get a restraining order. The elevator doors closed between us, another wall in an increasingly impenetrable fortress separating me from my former life. The poison spread through our extended family like wildfire. Aunt Judith, who had always slipped me extra cookies as a child, called to express her deep disappointment. Uncle Paul, my godfather, sent a terse email suggesting I seek professional help for my problems with impulse control. The narrative had been established, Grant, the family traitor. Only my best friend Alex stood firmly in my corner. This does not make any sense, he insisted over beers in my apartment. I have known you since 6th grade. You would never do something like this, especially not to Jackson. His unwavering belief was a lifeline I clung to when drowning in doubt. Social media became a minefield. Jackson posted cryptic references to betrayal, and the wounds from those closest cutting deepest. Mutual friends began taking sides, many quietly unfollowing or unfriending me without ever asking for my version of events. Then came Natalie's messages, which started innocuously enough. We need to talk about this situation, she wrote. Just you and me. I think we can work something out. The subtly threatening tone set off alarm bells. I immediately purchased a high-quality recording app for my phone and activated it before returning her call. We both know what really happened, she said, her voice honey-sweet over the line. But maybe there is a way to make this easier on everyone. What are you suggesting, Natalie? I asked carefully, keeping my tone neutral. Jackson and I have expensive taste, and babies are not cheap, she replied. If you were to help out financially, say $20,000 to start. Maybe my memory about that night could become less clear. I ended the call and immediately sent the recording to a new email account I had created to document everything related to this nightmare. Her attempted extortion only confirmed what I already knew. This was a calculated attack. Desperate for perspective, I reached out to Stephanie. Despite our breakup, she knew me better than almost anyone. We met at a coffee shop far from our usual haunts. The Grant I know would sooner cut off his right arm than betray his brother, she said firmly. You need a lawyer, and you need one yesterday. That afternoon, I consulted with Diana Washington, a bulldog of an attorney specializing in defamation. This is serious, she confirmed after hearing my story. We need to demand a paternity test immediately, and prepare for potential civil action. When I tried to arrange a meeting with my parents to present my side with Diana present, they refused. "We need time to process this," Mom texted. "Please respect our space right now." Thanksgiving arrived. Always my favorite holiday. Instead of my place at the family table, I spent it alone with a microwave dinner and old movies jumping each time my phone buzzed, hoping for a message of reconciliation that never came. My apartment, once my sanctuary, became my prison. Sleep evaded me. Food lost its taste. I dropped 15 pounds in a month. Looking in the mirror, I hardly recognized the hollow-eyed stranger staring back at me. The most terrifying moments came late at night when, exhausted and isolated, I would momentarily question my own reality. Had I somehow done this terrible thing and blocked it from memory? The thought was insidious and corrosive. Natalie escalated her campaign. Mutual friends reported she had tearfully confided that I was harassing her with constant messages and showing up uninvited, all completely fabricated. Walking into my regular coffee shop one morning, I received glares from a group of paralegals from Jackson's firm. One accidentally knocked into me, spilling coffee down my shirt without apology. Returning home that evening, I found my apartment door spray-painted with the word cheater in red. The property manager's security cameras had mysteriously malfunctioned that afternoon. The vandalism, while distressing, sparked something in me, a cold, clarifying anger that cut through the fog of despair. I was done being a passive victim. The next day, I hired Kevin Mercer, a private investigator with a reputation for thoroughness and discretion. Look into everything I instructed. Her past, her finances, her previous relationships. If there is anything to find, I need to know it. 3 agonizing weeks later, Kevin requested an urgent meeting at his cramped office downtown. "You were right to be suspicious," he said, sliding a thick folder across his desk. "Natalie Thompson is not who she claims to be." The contents were staggering. Natalie had operated under 3 different names in the past decade. She had a pattern of inserting herself into the lives of financially successful men, creating dramas and extracting money before disappearing. Most shocking of all, she was technically still married to a real estate developer in Phoenix, a fact she had concealed from Jackson. "There is more," Kevin continued. "Based on medical records I obtained, she has never been pregnant. Not now, not ever. She had a procedure 3 years ago that makes it virtually impossible. The financial investigation revealed Natalie was drowning in debt. Credit cards, personal loans, and gambling markers at casinos across 3 states. She needed money, and she had identified me, the successful brother without the complications of being her fiancé, as the perfect target for her scheme. Armed with this information, Diana filed for an immediate court order, demanding a paternity test and pursuing damages for defamation. We strategically served Natalie with papers at her workplace, ensuring maximum exposure. Her carefully constructed facade was beginning to crack. Diana arranged a meeting at her office with Natalie, her hastily acquired attorney Jackson, and me. I arrived early, heart pounding with anticipation. When Jackson walked in, he sat as far from me as the conference room would allow, still unable to meet my eyes. Natalie entered last, immaculately dressed and composed, until Diana methodically began presenting our evidence. First came the proof of her existing marriage certificate, property records, and recent tax filings. Jackson's face drained of color. "These are clearly fabricated," Natalie sputtered, but her attorney's uncomfortable shift in his seat suggested otherwise. Next came the medical records confirming her infertility, followed by the damning financial investigation and the history of similar cons in 3 different states. As each piece of evidence landed like a physical blow, Natalie's confidence visibly crumbled. "Even if some of this were true, which I am not saying it is," she countered desperately, "it does not change what happened between Grant and me. He led me on, made me feel special when Jackson was too busy with work. We have proof you were never alone with Grant," Diana replied coolly, producing affidavits from restaurant staff and credit card records disproving every instance Natalie had claimed they met privately. "Would you like to continue this charade in court, or shall we discuss settlement terms now?" The courtroom scene 2 weeks later was both vindication and heartbreak. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed our evidence with increasing dismay. Natalie, now unable to maintain her lies under oath and faced with potential perjury charges, finally broke. It was never supposed to go this far, she admitted, tears streaming down her face. I just needed money. My debts. They were closing in. Grant seemed successful, and I thought Jackson would just pay to make it go away quietly. The judge's rebuke was scathing. You have deliberately attempted to destroy a family and a man's reputation for financial gain, she stated. I am ordering a full psychological evaluation and referring this case to the district attorney for potential criminal charges. I won the defamation case completely, with the judge awarding substantial damages and a restraining order against Natalie. The courtroom victory felt hollow, however, as I watched my brother, the person I had idolized my entire life, crumple in his seat head in his hands, as the full extent of Natalie's deception was laid bare. Within days, Natalie disappeared from Seattle, reportedly fleeing to the East Coast. She left behind a devastated Jackson and a family struggling to process their complicity in my character assassination. The apologies began trickling in, awkward, insufficient attempts to mend what had been broken. Jackson sent a text, "Can we talk?" My parents showed up unannounced at my apartment door, my mother in tears, my father ashen-faced and suddenly aged. "We should have known better," they said. "We should have trusted you." But trust once shattered is not easily restored. I thanked them for coming, but asked for time. Time I desperately needed to process not just Natalie's betrayal, but theirs. The vindication I had desperately sought provided little comfort in the months that followed. Despite being completely exonerated, I felt fundamentally changed. Warier, more guarded, less willing to extend the automatic trust I once gave freely. The experience had not only cost me my family temporarily, but had altered my perception of human connections permanently. I found unexpected solace in weekly therapy sessions with Dr. Marshall, who specialized in family trauma. "What you are experiencing is a form of grief," he explained during one particularly difficult session. "You are mourning the loss of your foundational belief that family will always believe in you." Through these conversations, I gradually began processing the layers of betrayal. Not just Natalie's calculated deception, but my family's immediate willingness to believe the worst of me. The latter cut deeper than any false accusation ever could. Seeking connection without the weight of history, I joined a support group for victims of defamation and false accusations. The stories shared in that church basement every Thursday evening helped me understand I was not alone. Franklin, a former teacher wrongly accused by a student, became a particular friend. His quiet resilience, an inspiration. Meanwhile, Jackson persisted in his attempts to reconnect. Handwritten letters arrived detailing his shame and regret. "I failed as a brother in the most fundamental way possible," he wrote. "I know I do not deserve your forgiveness, but I will spend the rest of my life trying to earn back your trust." Text messages arrived on birthdays and holidays, then random weekdays, small overtures seeking any response. My parents were equally determined. They appeared at my apartment regularly, sometimes with my favorite childhood meals, other times simply to sit in uncomfortable silence until I was ready to talk. My mother aged years in months, the guilt etching new lines around her eyes. "Take all the time you need," my father said during one visit. "We will be here when you are ready. If you are ever ready." 6 months after the court case, I had dinner with Stephanie. Our romantic relationship was firmly in the past, but her perspective proved invaluable. "The question is not whether they deserve forgiveness," she said as we shared dessert. "The question is whether holding on to this anger is serving you anymore." Her words echoed in my mind as spring turned to summer. The weight of resentment had become exhausting, a second full-time job I could no longer afford emotionally. Not for their sake, but for my own. I needed to consider a path forward. I finally agreed to meet Jackson at a neutral location, a waterfront park where we had played as children. The moment he saw me, his carefully rehearsed speech evaporated. He broke down completely, this older brother who had always been my protector, now vulnerable and raw. "I have no excuse," he said when he could finally speak. "I should have known better. I should have believed you instantly." "Why did you not?" I asked the question that had haunted me for months. "I think." He paused, searching for honesty rather than excuses. "I think I was already having doubts about Natalie. About us. And it was easier to direct all that fear and anger at you than admit I had made a terrible mistake in choosing her. I failed you to avoid facing my own failure. His honesty, painful as it was, opened a door I had thought permanently closed. We talked for hours as the sun set over Elliott Bay, laying foundations for a relationship that would never be the same, but might someday be something new and possibly stronger. The first family dinner afterward was excruciatingly tense. Forced conversation and too many memories hovering unspoken over Mom's pot roast. But we showed up, all of us wounded but trying, and that counted for something. Through Jackson, I learned that he too had sought therapy, working through not only Natalie's betrayal, but examining why he had been vulnerable to someone like her in the first place. The engagement ring had been returned, its sale funding donations to organizations supporting victims of fraud and defamation. My own healing journey continued. I established clearer boundaries in all relationships, no longer assuming blood-guaranteed loyalty. I verified what once I would have taken on faith, not from cynicism, but from a hard-earned understanding that trust should be built rather than automatically granted. Professionally, I channeled my energy into work, earning a significant promotion to senior project manager. The precision and control of construction projects, their clear parameters and measurable outcomes, provided comfort when human relationships seemed hopelessly complex. On the one-year anniversary of that catastrophic family dinner, I spent the day hiking alone in the mountains, reflecting on all that had happened. The pain had not disappeared, but its edges had softened. I could now see the experience not just as trauma, but as a harsh teacher of invaluable lessons. I learned the courage required to stand alone for truth, even when everyone you love believes otherwise. I discovered the strength to rebuild when your foundation crumbles. Most importantly, I found that forgiveness does not mean forgetting or excusing, but simply choosing to move forward unburdened by resentment. My relationship with Jackson will never return to its former uncomplicated closeness. Instead, we are building something more honest, more mindful, with room for the complicated truth of our shared experience. In some ways, this new bond, forged in fire rather than simply inherited, holds its own kind of strength. The journey continues each day. Trust returns in small increments. Healing happens in quiet, unremarkable moments. A genuine laugh shared over dinner, the familiar rhythm of tossing a football in the backyard. The slow return of ease in conversation. Not a dramatic Hollywood resolution, but the real messy work of human reconnection. Have you ever had to rebuild trust with someone important in your life? What helped you move forward? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more journeys of resilience every week. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the people who hurt us the most are also the ones most worth forgiving. Not for their sake, but for our own peace. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that message today.